I'm Caleb Brown. Welcome back to KMFCast. This is episode 7. Super excited about this one. What we do here, we just pull in some X-teamers here at X-Team and chat about various topics, a new topic every episode. And today, why I'm so excited about this is because I'm a student of this one, learning more and more about NFTs, about crypto, about Web3. Really interesting. I think it's fascinating because it's a polarizing world, right? The NFT space, obviously super popular, but a little polarizing. And I think we're going to dive into that today with some amazing guests. So let's just go ahead and do that. Our producer, Lewis, will bring in some folks. There's Mario here at X-Team. There's Thomas here at X-Team. And then there's Spencer White. Thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Again, as I've said multiple times now, super stoked for this one because I just think the space is really fascinating. Like I said, trying to be a student myself and learn about it, and pulled in you three specifically because I know that you're all either interested, very knowledgeable about it, and in some cases, like Spencer, actually working in that space. And so I'm just really excited to dive into that. So Lewis, we do have our topics. I feel like without further ado, oh yes, there it is. We're talking about NFTs, crypto, Web3. Oh my. And first getting into just, I was hoping that someone here on our first kind of topic can just give us a little bit of an overview. I know that most folks watching this probably have a pretty solid idea of what an NFT is, what crypto is, of course, and probably Web3 as well for that matter. But I was just hoping that on this first topic, we could talk a little bit about NFTs and then kind of go into why they're valuable and why we even have some. We could actually talk about the two sides of valuable. We can talk about why some NFTs are selling for upwards of $300,000 for some Bored Apes, and we could also talk about some other the NFT itself is can be used in a lot of different ways, not just digital art. So I figured makes sense to kind of dive into that. So if anyone can kind of give a little bit of an overview of just quick, just kind of what an NFT is, how it's often talked about, obviously in regards to the digital art, but then maybe also tell us a little bit more about how they're maybe more versatile than some folks see them. If anyone wants to take that away.
Yeah, I can maybe start with the very basic, perhaps, just the very high level of what an NFT actually is. It's a non-fungible token, and what that means is it's a unique asset or a pointer to an asset on a blockchain. So basically what you have is, think for example of $2. $2 are exchangeable. An NFT is fundamentally different because it's not exchangeable. So you would have, for example, one asset that you can't exchange, you can't easily exchange with another asset. And so those live on the blockchain, and that's where much of its value is derived from. And that's also, I think, why it's complicated for a lot of people as well, because why is an NFT valuable? It's actually a really difficult question. Why an NFT is valuable, because first of all, it's a pointer to an asset. So it's a transaction on a blockchain. It's a transaction on a blockchain that points to a digital asset that is stored elsewhere. So basically, when you have people who say, "Oh, I bought, say, a JPEG," technically they haven't bought the JPEG; they bought the pointer to the JPEG. Yep. But there's a lot of value in, for example, the traceability and the transparency that comes with the blockchain. So you would be able, for example, to know who has bought something, for how much, definitely for how much something has bought, because that's on the blockchain and it's very transparent and everyone can see it, and you can trace that back from the very start, from when it was created, all the way to where it is right now. And that's something that's very hard to do with art right now. So that's one of the things where I believe NFTs are valuable.
I think in terms of value of NFTs, one thing too that gives them value, I would say, is the fact that it's just a certificate of ownership, essentially. So you can't really own a JPEG, right? Because the JPEG is able to be copied infinitely. But when you have that certificate of ownership over that JPEG, then it allows you to actually prove that you're the certified owner. So it adds this level of ownership that I think will add value to the asset, because they have the ability to sell it, really.
Absolutely. So, I mean, do you think that we'll start? So, obviously, again, I know like just kind of the mainstream, thought of it when they hear NFTs, people do think of the digital art. But do you think that we'll start seeing NFTs for? I've heard examples of going to a sports game, and the ticket that you get to that can potentially be an NFT, and there's even some pretty cool. Not even necessarily a valuable thing, but just some cool stuff where you could have an app that syncs up with your wallet that could show you all the games you've been to, and there's a lot of interactive stuff you can do in there. And I've even heard a much bigger extent to it of houses on the blockchain, being able to buy a house or a car or something, anything with a contract where there's it's important where who the true owner is. I mean, do you think we'll see that? Do you think we'll see buying a house, getting a mortgage, and that's on the blockchain, and that's technically an NFT?
So where I live, that's actually already the case in Georgia, the country, not the US state, the country. Close to right underneath Russia. They have a private blockchain and it's not the property itself; it's the land. And so the land is registered on the blockchain, the land rights. And so because it's a private blockchain, it doesn't really have the transparency, but it's done programmatically to a degree. And so that's why the government actually decided to put it on the blockchain. So absolutely, that's going to happen eventually, perhaps with property. Anything that is a contract, I could see benefiting from being put on the blockchain.
Yeah. We can't forget that the NFT can be both digital or physical, or both at the same time, really. And I think one of the problems right now to really understand NFTs is that they're very similar to what websites were like in 1997, where people were like really confused about what it is. And I don't know if you guys remember, there was this one student who actually built a landing page, and he sold every pixel for $1. So companies bought Coca-Cola to have the names and stuff like that, because back then we didn't understand how websites work, right? So you couldn't foresee the utility of the website, or things like Uber coming up 20 years later. So that's one of the things. From a technology standpoint, we're not quite there to actually explore the endless amounts of utility we can derive from an NFT. So that's why there's so much misinformation, I'd say, or different points of view about these assets, right? That's what they are at the end of the day. And I wanted to touch on Thomas's example of that money is a fungible token in comparison to an NFT, and that uniqueness there is, because you can change two $10 bills for $1 for one $20 bill, and it's exact the same value, although the paper is different, right? But the NFT, even if it's identical, so you might have the same CryptoPunk or whatever you want to call it. Let's say it's an NFT of Kobe Bryant, right? They might be identical. However, there will always be a differentiation. For example, an edition number. The number one edition might be worth more than the second edition, or maybe the 24 because it's Kobe Bryant's number. It's the most valuable one of them. So they're always unique, and that's an important thing to keep in mind.
That's interesting. I never considered that.
Yeah. So it's one of the things. And to your question of real life utility, I'm sure that, for example, Starbucks will sometime in the future release a loyalty NFT where you can get a special flavor if you have this NFT, or a 10% discount on Wednesdays, wherever. and to those who purchase a lot of Starbucks coffee, they might be very inclined to buy one of these NFTs because the accumulated utility is so much more valuable to them that their price are willing to pay on day one. So that's a way to see that.
So actually, Kings of Leon did something like this already with their last album. Not only did they give people the ability to buy the album you buy a blockchain token, and that gave you a code or an NFT, and that gave you a code that you could redeem to then listen to the album. That was one thing, but you also could buy another NFT token that gave you access to like backstage, and the more valuable to stuff like backstage meet and greets with them, to like, or you can go to 5 of their concerts, etc. And there were different grades of tokens, and like the backstage meet and greet was very expensive, and then it was less and less expensive, and it sold out. Obviously they're riding a wave, of course, which is probably why it sold out, but that's part of the utility. And I think that's where much of the value lies in the future, because the profile picture NFT sets, that's not going to last. People will eventually realize like you can't keep on doing 10,000 pictures, put it on the blockchain, and then expect it to sell for $20,000 each. That's just so. NFTs with utility are, in my opinion, going to be what will survive and what will thrive in the future.
I would 100% agree with both you guys. The real value of NFTs lies in the utility of it. The digital art is only just breaking the surface of what the technology can be used for to represent ownership. And there's this term I heard at one point called phygital. It's essentially the NFT representation of physical items, so the deed to your house, or there's certain projects working with like high-end designers and fashion brands to launch like Nike. You've probably heard about the Adidas and the Nike launching NFTs and working with different organizations like that. So I think the utility is really what brings the value. Yeah. For
sure. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, it's just, I think it's fascinating. And I wanted to make sure that we highlighted that, like I said, I just feel like a lot of folks really do at the moment, at least, only associate it with the digital art, and rightfully so. That is the biggest kind of splash in that world. But yeah, definitely want to highlight that there is, existing uses right now, and also I think looking forward into the future, there's the ability to work that into I think it was Thomas said anything really that's on a contract.
There's also one other thing. So talking about art, and I think this is extremely cool, and one of the ways that you can't really predict how it will evolve, and this is one of the ways that it has evolved that's been really beneficial for artists, is that people tend to think, okay, yeah, the Bored Ape Yacht Club and like the 10,000 profile picture of the penguins or whatever, but also actually people who create one-to-one art and sell that one piece of art on the blockchain. That is a way to communicate directly, or to give people, an audience, the ability to directly purchase something. But also what these people can do is, because it's on the blockchain, you can get a resale cut. The original artist gets a resale cut, often of 5 to 10%. So if in the future you build your career and your original pieces, the ones that you made in the beginning, start selling for a lot of money, you will always get 5 to 10% of the resale price. And before that was entirely impossible. David Hockney, for example, sold like one of his paintings sold for, I don't know, 60 million or something in 2014, and he saw nothing of that because it was obviously no longer his. But had it been on the blockchain, he would have received 5 or 10% of that decades after he'd originally sold that. So that's so powerful. And that's only possible because it's on the blockchain, because it's programmatically, and it's so transparent. And that's one of the cool things about NFTs and art on NFT.
Yeah, so that's what before we kind of jumped on here when we're discussing topics, we had covered or talked about some benefits to the artists, and I wanted to bring that up because it's actually not one of our cards on here, but I did think it was a good point to make, and that's I was actually going to pose that before we went on to the next topic. But yeah, I think a lot of people don't even know that or haven't considered that. But that's huge for a digital artist, right? That you could continue to get royalties for future sales. That's huge. Yeah.
I think it's go on.
I was just going to say, with certain projects that we've talked to and connected with, it's arguably for them more about the royalty revenue than the initial sale. So yeah.
So I think this is going to be particularly important in the music industry because just of, the royalty system and especially for independent artists. I think that is, I haven't seen anything as of yet that goes in that direction, but I think that will be very impactful when they figure it out. I have no idea how it would work exactly.
Yeah, well, that's what makes this whole space pretty interesting, because it is a little bit of the Wild West. It feels like I'm dating myself, but it feels like getting into into computers and the internet, back on dial-up days when nothing was really established and you were just kind of throwing together whatever you could to make a website or. It really does have that feel, that early Wild West feel where, a lot of the rules and protocols and things haven't even really been established yet.
Yeah, actually, speaking of the early days and the royalties, so I'm sure most people, if they've heard of NFTs, they're familiar with OpenSea. It's like the biggest NFT marketplace. On OpenSea, you are not able to split royalties with other creators, which is actually really interesting because my background's in the media industry, specifically the recording industry, and studying how royalties work there. Different people who are involved in the production of a music album or a song entitled to different royalty percentages, but in this NFT landscape, no one's developed the solution to split royalties between the contributors. So it's still pretty early, but that's a potential use case or a potential project for someone.
For sure.
It's actually, so it exists, but not for OpenSea. So I used to write for a blockchain called Near. Top 30 market cap. It's a layer 1 semi-competitor, bridges to Ethereum, and it solves a lot of problems that Ethereum currently has and wants to solve with its second generation. And the NFT platform that's built on top of Near is called Mintbase, and they do that. So you can split royalties, so you can work together with however many artists you want. Oh, I think there's a limit of like 10 or whatever. You can split it between 10 people, allocate percentages, and then the resale is split appropriately. So absolutely, and I no doubt that OpenSea will eventually get there too.
Well, that's amazing. OpenSea, like with the Ethereum network, it's not really optimal to use. So it's nice to learn about these other solutions. I haven't looked too much into Near.
That's what's fascinating about this is obviously Ethereum right now top dog in this space, but just with some of those limitations and things like that, the gas fees and everything, we could see a world where we switch to something entirely different for this purpose. Fascinating. And anyway, so talking about the early days of the internet, that's actually kind of a good way to jump to the next topic, because this is all kind of part of Web3 and just kind of this digital transformation. I kind of wanted to hear just a little bit about maybe even just explaining kind of that difference, because there are all these kind of different terms, crypto within NFTs and the overarching Web3. Just kind of wanted to hear a little bit from y'all about Web3 and things like that. And actually, I threw in the accessibility issues as kind of a subtopic we were talking about, because I did think that was important to touch on. So if someone wanted to talk a little bit about what Web3 means. I started in Web 1, kind of got my more professional toes dipped into Web 2. Really loved Web 2. And now we're seeing Web 3. So I was just hoping that we could kind of touch on that and then, talk about some challenges that still face Like I said, this is the Wild West, and some of that is exciting, but some of it, there's issues that definitely need to be solved. So, someone wants to tell us a little bit about Web3 and kind of the differences and what we're seeing. Obviously, and that's not even all defined yet. So.
Sure. So you could get very technical about it, but I'll try to explain it how I understand Web3. So Web 1 was basically, the first version of the internet from 89, 90 or something, until I'd say 2005, around YouTube, which was basically reading, right? Just the content. Then from 2005 to around this era right here, we have Web 2, which is also creating content. So you don't only read, but you can also create multimedia content for the internet. And then Web 3, to me, it's all about community building, and it's for me it is so important, so related to NFTs, because if you buy an NFT, you are holding one of several of something that immediately makes you part of a community, right? You have one of 5,000 or something, but there's 5,000 other people, well, up to 5,000, right? Who also have this asset. So you instantly become part of something. And I think that's something very unique to Web3.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I can tell you just from, like I said, being a student trying to learn in the NFT specifically, I've even jumped in some of the discords, for some of the communities behind some of the bigger art projects, and I'll tell you, it's honestly awesome, and it does have those early web vibes of people just coming together and figuring stuff out together. Because I can tell you, even some of the smaller NFT projects, the ones that aren't selling for crazy dollars. The community's awesome. There's people always in the Discord chatting about stuff and helping each other and fixing. And granted, there's a ton of scams too. But I would say the core of it is good people trying to navigate this new world together.
Definitely, I would say the community is arguably one of the biggest parts of an NFT project. So, and with the Web3. The certification of ownership of a digital asset is kind of where it changes from Web 2 to Web 3. That's how I understand it. So, Web 2 is not, there's no ownership involved, but with Web 3, you're able to take self-custody of your assets on the blockchain digitally. And also that involves being in a community as well. So.
If I can make a distinction, also because of course you had communities in Web 2, right? If you think about, you have a YouTube artist, creator, and a community that is dedicated to them. And I think the difference between that community and the 3.0 community is that the individual in the community becomes more important or more identifiable, maybe. That's the way to see it. So, and at the same time, there's this privacy component to it, because in the blockchain you can identify someone by token number and stuff like that, but you don't know who the person is or who the holder is, independent of their a physical person or maybe a company.
Absolutely. And so as we do continue to kind of navigate this road, Spencer, I believe it was you that brought up the accessibility issues. And admittedly, I don't know a ton about some of the challenges that face this space, Web3 and such. And so I was hoping you could kind of enlighten me a little bit, because I'm curious about that. I always like to hear the challenges that exist, so that I can help think about a future where we fix those problems. But yeah, I'd like to learn a little bit more about some of those things that we're facing.
Yeah, of course. That's kind of one of the main things that I've noticed with crypto and Web3 is I talked to a lot of my friends about it, and my family, and people are interested in participating, but they have a hard time learning how to get in on a decentralized level, how to participate in the network, as opposed to just buying on Coinbase. Actually, based on research, I've discovered that approximately 70% of people are aware of the existence of crypto and NFTs, but only 3% of the population actually owns a digital asset.
Yeah.
So I would attribute that to the technical barriers to entry of learning what is a Web3 wallet, how do I send money around through different networks, all the bridging, and on top of that, the gas fees on Ethereum, which is, one of the main issues, in my opinion, is Ethereum is kind of like the base layer of everything. So when you withdraw from an exchange, a lot of the time you have to go to the Ethereum network before you can bridge to another network, and that'll already cost you a couple $100s to do. So there's that accessibility issue as well, on top of the technical barrier to entry.
And that accessibility issue isn't just a problem for users, it's a problem for developers as well. So because they would have to deploy those contracts, those smart contracts, and it often costs a lot of money to do so on Ethereum. But then Ethereum is also where most of the money is located, most of the big money is located. So if an NFT project is ambitious, it would have to go with Ethereum. I do think eventually it will be layer 2, but it's, as you say, that's still the complexity of the initial onboarding of just a person, right? Just a random, like, we're all very familiar with technology, but that's not the vast majority of people. And I think that's actually where Web3 might actually start looking a little bit like Web2, because Web2 was all about centralized power, right? You have Google, you have Facebook, you have YouTube. That's Web2. Basically, the internet had from a trillion websites or a million websites that a lot of people visited to a few websites that everyone visited, and that was Web 2. And so Web 3 is idealistically should be more decentralized, and it should put more focus or more power on the individual. And there is some success, like you have Uniswap and you have decentralized exchanges that do some of that. But for the vast majority, just because of the ease of use, it's going to be like OpenSea, it's going to be Coinbase, it's going to be Binance, it's going to again be power is going to be congregated in services that offer convenience to users. And I think so it's a little double. It's a little complicated to onboard a lot of users. You can't really expect them to be familiar with the very complicated decentralized and the bridging. I struggle with this sometimes. Bridging between blockchains is hard.
Yeah.
So they'll gravitate towards these websites that make it easy, and they will have a lot of power in the system.
Yeah, that's actually one of our main points with our project that we're trying to solve is the accessibility issue, and pretty much removing the technical barriers to entry. So essentially what we're allowing users to do is subscribe to our NFT platform, where they're able to collect curated NFTs without ever actually using crypto. So we have our subscription plan available on the website for people to go on and purchase, and the only thing that they need to do is create a MetaMask or a Web3 wallet. So really the accessibility issue is kind of the main thing that we're trying to solve here, and just creating solution offerings that allow people to basically bypass cryptocurrency and the technical aspects of it all. So that's inspiring to hear you say that it's really going to be the platforms that are the convenience models, the ease of use, that are going to be the successful ones.
Probably, yeah.
I mean, it's hard for me to believe that won't be the case. Just, it wasn't too long ago that I was exploring, just, going onto OpenSea and checking it out. And it's yeah, right. I mean, I have a technical background. I was able to do it, but I was like, man, this is the biggest platform right now. And, I certainly couldn't, instruct my mom on how to buy an NFT at the moment. So yeah, that convenience is going to play a big part, I think.
My dad calls me on the phone and with questions about MetaMask, and it takes hours to get through how
exactly,
to make a swap on Uniswap. So
exactly,
it can be confusing at times.
For sure, yeah. And I do. I think we'll see a lot of that confusion go away. And so obviously, I think we're all, mostly on the pro side of things. Our next topic is NFTs. Is it all a big bubble? We've already talked a lot about, the fact that NFTs are more than just, a picture of an ape smoking a cigar, right? But I'm curious to hear from y'all, who I brought in again specifically because of your expertise. Do you think that we are sort of in a are there aspects of NFTs that are bubbles? Do you think I hear a lot of people that are even Gary Vee says that a lot of these big projects will probably go to zero at some point. So yeah, moving on to our third topic. Do you think we are in a bit of a bubble in some degrees?
Short answer, yes. A huge bubble at that. But again, it's like websites in 1997. Like there was a huge bubble there too, and it bursted. And that what had real value and real utility remained, and that's what we know today as the world basically. And I think the same thing is gonna happen. There's a lot of stuff that NFT market that just won't survive because it's just built on hype and FOMO. And I think that's what's gonna happen.
And I think that's where NFTs get a lot of hate because first there's the jealousy aspect of it, of people who aren't familiar with it, because suddenly there's an 18-year-old who sells a picture and he's a millionaire, right?
Yep, right.
And that seems ridiculous, and it is ridiculous, right? Because people would be working their whole day and wouldn't get close to that sort of money, and then that just randomly happens. So there's that element where people think, oh, that's ridiculous. It's a bubble. And that is a bubble. That's probably not going to happen as easily anymore. But it's as Spencer says, like something will, it's new technology, right? And a lot of people, it's going to burst and a lot of people are going to cry and a lot of people are going to lose money. But there is something that will happen with that technology. It will stay. There is definite value in a blockchain and in digital assets that are traceable on a blockchain. That's absolutely not going to go away. So yeah, the value might implode, but eventually some companies, and maybe like Bored Ape Yacht Club, how big that already is, how prominent that already is, they will survive and they will have value in the future, regardless of whether there's a bubble or not.
I would 100% agree. It's I've heard before that the pumpamentals precede the fundamentals, right? So the prices of these assets have gone through the roof, but the fundamentals are there. They're just being currently developed as we speak. But the hype and excitement around the new technology is kind of driving valuation to ridiculous levels, but it makes it fun and exciting, right? So
absolutely, yeah. And as we talked about before, some of that stuff that I think anyway that a lot of folks don't know about, artists being able to continue to get royalties for future sales, like things like that are just like so important that if just even that, or even the kind of smart contract stuff that makes sure that the contracts are as they say they are on the blockchain. You can't refute that. I think wildly important. It is going to be, man, that's going to be weird if some of these big projects do end up, dropping significantly in value. That's almost going to be weird to see now that we've seen, I think it was Jimmy Fallon had Paris Hilton on the show the other day, showing off their Bored Apes.
That's what's going to prick the bubble.
I mean, it really is wild, though. It's, if and I'm not a hater at all in the NFT space, I'm not, but if I had to explain to myself, 10 years ago or whatever, that, we'd have $300,000 pictures being talked about by Jimmy Fallon on a late night show, I don't even think I would understand what that sentence meant.
Right.
It's wild to see, but yeah, I think important to remember that the technology backing it's pretty important. Definitely, and as we are X team, important to think about from the developer standpoint. There's a big industry in itself, just of the backbone of developing systems that can handle smart contracts and crypto wallets and things like that.
Yeah, that's actually one of the, on the previous point with the Web3 and the digital transformation, just like we saw the digital transformation of people moving their businesses to be more digital friendly and all these things, I would foresee a future where people start now but transforming their business model to include the use cases of blockchain technology. For example, the provenance and the tracking and global supply chains, and the NFTs with different certifications of, ownership of all different kinds of contracts and all these different things. Companies are going to be sort of needing to onboard specialists in that field to get them on the blockchain. I don't know if you guys saw Netflix just tweeted out, what do you think of NFTs? Twitter, Instagram are moving to NFTs. Even Adobe's offering NFT products. So this Web3 transformation is sort of already underway, I would say.
For sure. Yeah. Well, that's interesting to see all of these, pretty big companies. Not even just the Netflix, not even just on the digital side, but I mean, Budweiser, I think, is doing a lot in the NFT space. Like, you're seeing it across a lot of these big brands. So, it's definitely in our culture right now.
And actually, go ahead, Mario.
Go on, please. There you go. No problem.
Thank you. There's also a bigger point there. Like, look at how online everyone already is. And doesn't it make sense that stuff has value online, right?
Yeah.
So doesn't it make sense that it's not just free, whether that's... And actually, one of the biggest examples for me is identity, right? We are an NFT in a way, like we are all unique humans. And so you obviously, that's not with like resale value or whatever, that's the equivalent of digital slavery or something. But having control over your identity, that's such an important part of what blockchain could possibly do. The same for, say, Louis Vuitton and tracing bags and whether the bag is actually made, as you say, Spencer, like tracking supply chain, whether that bag is a fake or not, right? So all these things have so much value, and it leads to a world where we're already so online, right? Like, it might as well make sense to have something that has value and is underlined by a system that traces that value and that gives the ability to actually underlie that value.
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. I mean, it was kind of the Web 2 days, when, the early days of something like Twitter, just social networks in general, you put your name, of course, you have a profile picture, a little bit about yourself. It really, isn't wild to have a kind of a next extension where you have a little bit more ownership over, your kind of online persona, really, who you are online. And then that even ties into some stuff we're going to get into, not the next topic, but after that, about gaming and such, because I think there's a lot of stuff that's super interesting. You mentioned Louis Vuitton. I'm excited to touch on that because I think there's some interesting stuff. So while we may be in some kind of bubble, there's obviously still value in all of this stuff. So that's a good segue to the next one, which I'm interested in. And I honestly don't know a ton about it, but like I said, I know from exploring communities and knowing that there's great, strong communities in there. And I kind of joked earlier about plenty of scams and people in there kind of, doing a modern equivalent of phishing. I just know that I have a good group here that can kind of tell a little bit about, what to look out for, because there are scams. It was a couple weeks ago, you saw some people, and man, they got, it's sad. They got kind of piled on Twitter for saying, I lost my apes, and a lot of people that are naysayers of the JPEG community were kind of making fun of them, which it's a kind of a big loss if you lose a significant NFT like that. So just wanted to hear from y'all about some red flags to look out for, some things to make sure you don't kind of get the rug pulled out under you.
I would say first thing is look at the team involved in the project you're interested in. Go to their LinkedIn, kind of see their history, what their experience is, and if they're real people, if it's an anonymous team, my general rule is kind of tread with caution.
Yeah, I think that's the big one. Whenever I evaluate, I have a few NFTs, and whenever I evaluate a project, it's, are they anonymous? And sometimes actually, so I worked together with a team that, because they were anonymous because they were kids, they were below 18.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of, is this how legal is this? It's we don't want to disclose our identity because it's strange to do it when you're, I don't know, 16 years old or something. So there is some reason to it, but you would want to have people who have some history, some social history, because otherwise you have no accountability, right? And that's one of the unique things about blockchain, but also one of the downsides is that people can just whip up a project, and then people would buy it, and then they run away and no one would ever know who they were. They have no accountability and you can't trace them back, and so that's so dangerous. Right. So yeah, definitely anonymous team, that's dangerous. And then I tend to kind of just go into the Discord and just see how's the community. Is the community about, because some communities are about, let's sell this, we want to, the floor needs to go up, and then the floor is the lowest price of an NFT that's currently sold on OpenSea. And if the floor isn't going up, how toxic do they get? Because you'll see certain communities are pretty wholesome, are wonderful, amazing. Like the Surreals is a project I really love. Their community is so wholesome, it's so nice. I have little newspapers, and it's just really great. And then there's other projects that I've been a part of where it gets so toxic, and then it's like, do we even want to be part of that? Right? You got to be careful with that type of stuff. So just kind of get an idea of the vibe. That's at least what I do in their Discords.
Absolutely. No, that's great advice. So that's all about like before you buy. I'm also curious about, like I was kind of gave that example of like, someone getting their NFT, I don't know if stolen is the right word. They kind of get scammed a little bit. How can someone explain how that happens? Because I actually don't know the process for how they, how someone yanks an NFT from you.
Well, that was actually not even, it was someone exploiting a bug on OpenSea. So these people had Bored Ape yacht clubs or whatever, and way back in the day, before they were worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, they listed them for sale. But in order to bypass the gas fee to delist them when they decided they didn't want to sell them anymore, they sent it to a different wallet, which showed it as delisted on OpenSea, but it was actually still listed for sale through I think it was like a Rarible API or something.
Okay.
So someone found that out and bought all these old NFT projects listed way under what they should have been, because it was still actually listed for sale due to people trying to bypass the tax fee to delist it, or not the tax fee, the gas fee. They would send it to a different wallet. So it was really no one's fault except for OpenSea, I guess. And I don't know. Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that that certainly shows the negative side of the Wild West. Some of those the technical aspects not being totally nailed down yet.
There's also more common ways, as you would maybe see in like a credit card fraud. Where you basically get hooked into inputting your information. So you're just linking your wallet to some page that presents itself as the official page, and then your stuff is gone.
Gotcha. So like a man in the middle attack, where you think it's the legit thing, you sign in with your real wallet credentials, and then that attacker in the middle now has everything they need to access your wallet. Yep. And then they can just transfer out anything attached to it.
Yeah. Same with never give away your seed phrase. People do it, right? Like you would get, whenever you ask a question, try asking a question in a Discord channel of an NFT project, right? Immediately, you will get people messaging you separately. And they'll ask for, and they'll have a name like crypto or NFT project support or whatever. Yep. And they'll ask, okay, how can I help you? Blah, blah, blah. They just try to scam you. They're all scams. But if you're not familiar with this, you could fall for it, right?
Yeah.
You could just fall for it.
Yeah, when I was first getting into the crypto scene, I joined some Telegram groups, and it's 1,000 times worse in Telegram. Like, I wanted to collaborate with a certain project, so I reached out in their Telegram, and I get a direct message from someone with the same profile picture as the leader, and they're like, "We're so interested in collaborating," or whatever, and then they send you a link to input your seed phrase for your wallet, and you're like, just never do that. Never input your private keys anywhere.
Yep. So. That is definitely good advice across the board. Yeah. Well, yeah, very, very good to know. I'm glad that we kind of covered, both that kind of vetting of projects, as well as just some of that stuff you can have, that can happen to you even just with, a wallet or that kind of the technical issues that happen on the OpenSea end. Do you know, out of curiosity, since it was kind of a technical issue on OpenSea's end, did they do anything about that? Was there any kind of No,
I haven't heard of any reparations or anything.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. Well, yeah. Then that actually leads us to our last kind of official topic here. I did want to, once we're done with this one, I did kind of want to, wrap up with just, I'd like to hear some, maybe some projects you really like. I know Thomas, you just mentioned one, but we could link them in the Discord or in the description maybe. And I definitely want to hear more, Spencer, about some stuff you're working on if you want to. Kind of plug that a little bit, but let's first talk about NFTs and gaming. And I just think it's a really interesting one. And I'll tell you why in particular is because, that was when I first heard about sort of digital assets like this, NFTs. The easiest kind of click in my brain for it was like, I've bought things in game before, that were digital items that weren't even necessarily mine. They were just like, an outfit for a character in a video game or something. But that was kind of that bridge for me to sort of start to understand that a little bit more. So I think gaming is just, for one, gaming is just always kind of ahead of things, or at least often is. But I wanted to hear a little bit about kind of where you think we'll see some of the NFT stuff working in as those digital assets in game get a little bit more advanced with this tech that's coming out. And then also we were talking about it, so I figured I'd throw it in there. Just kind of what Microsoft, obviously, big into the tech space, of course, acquiring Activision could potentially mean for that space, and what could we see coming to Xbox as a result of that. So if anyone wants to take it away with kind of any aspect that's pretty broad, just NFTs and gaming, but I think it's a fascinating topic.
I think gaming, specifically like games like Fortnite and things where you buy in-game items, just as like apparel or it's cosmetic items in games.
Yep.
That kind of is really what unlocked my understanding of NFTs in the beginning. At first I was just, what is this? And then I realized people have already been doing this for a while in games, but they never had the actual ownership to then turn around and sell it to someone else or send it to a friend.
Exactly. I mean, I think that's why I think like the younger generation kind of gets NFT. Like I feel like the younger folks, when I just see them on on Twitter or whatever, people talking about it, and I can tell that they're younger. They're the ones that aren't so much of the naysayers, because I feel like they kind of grew up with digital assets and they understand that owning something digitally literally makes sense.
Yeah,
it's actually it's why Vitalik Buterin founded Ethereum. It's on his homepage. He said that when he was, 18 or 16 years old or something, he had a World of Warcraft character and he had a super powerful weapon, and then Blizzard just decided to nerf the weapon, and he was like, this is ridiculous, and so he founded Ethereum.
That's amazing. I didn't know that. That's amazing. Wow.
It's on his website. That's the motivation for founding Ethereum. But more seriously, so 3 years ago in 2018, I wrote for a blockchain gaming magazine. And so I reviewed a lot of very, very early blockchain games, and the one that's still around right now that is amazing is Gods Unchained, which is a card game. How do you call it? Trading card game, TCG, something like Magic the Gathering.
Yep.
And basically all the cards that you earn, and you can earn them by playing, or you can earn them by buying packs, they are on the blockchain. And they're mostly on a layer 2, so you don't have to pay gas fees. They have their own layer called layer 2 called Immutable, and that's just, it's a perfect example of how NFTs tie into gaming, and it's a great game too. I play it to this day. It's so good. So if anyone's interested in exploring and NFT native, if that's a thing, game, then Gods Unchained is a really good example to get into.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great point. So I think there's a distinction to be made between NFT native games such as Gods Unchained or like Axie's Infinity, like the play to earn ones, and then regular games that are adopting NFTs, as might be the case for Activision games. So in one, you have your asset, your monster, your armor, whatever, and it already is built into the entire system is built into the idea that has an individual value, right? So either an attack that is only reserved for that type of class, or breeding mechanics and all of that stuff. And then on say Activision games, you have the idea, for example, what Spencer said about the Fortnite skins, right? So how do you make something valuable that is already limited or already controlled within a certain sphere, if that makes sense? So for example, if you bought a weapon that is an NFT within a Call of Duty game, how does that make it different than just a regular skin, right? And I think it's a lot about actually owning it and having the ability to move it from A to B, maybe between games. So Microsoft acquiring a whole bunch of different developers might be a first step to create some kind of Microsoft metaverse, where you could actually have a hub where you share different assets, right? I hope it doesn't turn into something like a Ready Player One, because then the IPs just mix and you have like this kind of mix and match of things, and just ruins the single player for me, for example. And I'm hoping more of like a Wreck-It Ralph kind of scenario, where you have the individual games, but then you have a central place where you can hang out, with your whatever you have of an asset that gives you a special utility when you're wearing it. For example, you have let's say a shotgun from a Call of Duty game, and then you're walking around this hub, and then you have an opportunity to see a trailer for an upcoming game that only you can see because you have that special numbered weapon, or you have a special discount or some asset that you can buy because you have this. So that would be really cool. But I hope they don't just go forward with just mixing things to live up to the hype without really thinking about it, right? Even some. So I think there's as you said, Caleb, there are bigger brands coming into the space, and I don't think that all of them quite understand what it means, and also what it means to have things like first appearances or first editions, right? For example, Disney partnered with Vivi, which is so they're really big into IPs, and they have the Marvel brand, they have Star Wars, they have Disney, and they did this licensing agreement with them. And I don't think they quite thought it through, because I think they left a lot of value, which is excellent for us, because we're gonna profit it, because it goes down to the market level, or to consumer level, right? And I don't think they quite understand the space yet. So when that happens, there's where we can kind of profit from that misunderstanding, or just not calculating the values correctly.
For sure. Yeah. And we can only kind of, sort of wait and see what some of the bigger brands do. But the potential there is wild. I mean, not only, I think that's so cool, the ability to have something in one game, and because you own it, just universally, that if it's supported, that you could, bring that into other games and use that in different ways, whether it's, it is a weapon or a costume or something like that. But I would love to see a real world scenario where a digital asset or a real physical asset had an NFT attached to it. Like if I buy a pair of Nike shoes for real, and then because I own that, I can put those on in Fortnite. That's so cool. I would love that.
Yeah.
No, that's coming down the pipeline, I'm sure.
It's got to be. It's so cool.
Have you heard of the project called Luxo?
I haven't, no.
Oh, man. Well, that's exactly like what they're focusing on, basically, is the phygital world. So bridging an NFT with a physical product, and they're actually working with like Nike and certain brands like that. And I'm sure Nike's working with others too. But the guy who started it is actually one of the initial founders of the ERC 115 standard. So
Right.
Got it. Cool. Yeah.
Anyway.
A lot to look forward to. I think that space is going to be really interesting. And yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, I think a lot of the bigger brands probably don't have their head wrapped around it. I mean, look, there was so much in Web 2. You can look. I keep bringing it up because I think it's relevant. You can look to Web 2 and even Web 1, for some of that comparison. But I mean, I remember in early days of Web 2 of big brands, saying like, well, what's the ROI if I market on Twitter or Facebook or something, and they were, comparing it to, getting Nielsen ratings from TV ads and things like that. And I obviously most brands have understood it as Web 2 matured. And I think you're just going to see that in Web 3 as well. So early stage, maybe some resistance or just some, not understanding, but I think as all of this kind of evolves and I think you're going to see a lot more of it, and hopefully brands, understanding it and, working with marketing agencies that understand tech as well to kind of guide them in the right direction, hopefully anyway. Cool. Exactly. I think that's all I had on gaming. Like I said, wanted to kind of wrap up, just kind of free form, no pressure, but if anyone wants to, talk about maybe an NFT community that you really love, that you think is no endorsement or whatever, but just worth checking out. Thomas, I know you mentioned one, and like I said, Spencer, I know you're actually kind of actively working on a project, which I personally I checked out briefly, but I don't know a ton about kind of your involvement and things like that. So I'd love to hear more about that and let you plug that. So if anyone has anything they want to talk about in that space, or something they're a fan of or working on, would love to do that now.
I actually want to talk about something. It's not a project, but a lot of people bring this up, and it bothers me a little bit because there's a lot of truth to it, and it's NFTs and climate change, right? People think there's a lot of hate up to NFTs because it's bad for the climate, and I understand where that's coming from. So basically where that's coming from is it's because Ethereum is currently using a consensus mechanism, a way to come to an agreement called proof of work, similar to Bitcoin, that uses a lot of electricity. And where does that electricity comes from? That's generated from polluting sources that are bad for the planet. And so there is a degree of truth to that, that NFTs in that sense, indirectly are bad for the environment. But people got to realize that it's not all blockchains. First of all, Near is a carbon neutral blockchain, for example, and a lot of other blockchains use different consensus protocols. And secondly, Ethereum is moving away from that. Within a year or something, they're moving to proof of stake, where it won't rely anymore on electricity, but on how much Ethereum you stake in the system. So it moves away from computing power. So after that, it will really only be Bitcoin that draws so much electricity. So really within a year or so, NFTs and it being bad for the environment are going to be like a non-issue. So that's just something I wanted to raise in a free-form wrap-up kind of topic.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you did. That was actually one of the things that I had on my list that I meant to tack on to the end here. So I'm glad that you brought it up, because that's one that I've definitely heard a lot from, the kind of the environmental concerns, which, like you said, are valid at the moment. But I think I've seen a lot of promising works, showing that that's kind of being worked on.
And I think the environmental impact of NFTs is definitely going to shift downwards as people start to discover these other blockchains like Near or different layer 2 solutions like Immutable X or Polygon or any of those kinds. So actually we've been building on Polygon for our NFT project. It's called the Mulletverse.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a play on the metaverse with the trends in the mullet. So the mullet is actually the #1 most searched hairstyle of 2021, and Google Trends shows it's up 544% worldwide searches. So that's kind of where the inspiration came from in the name. But with the project itself, we're working to build a solution offering essentially for users that is a curated NFT marketplace. So what we're trying to do is block out all the scam projects, the fly-by-night, like let's just throw this up kind of deals. And we're trying to work with real artists to launch real content to users. And we're a user first is where we're building from. So we're trying to, lower the technical barriers to entry by allowing people to interact with crypto and Web3 technology as minimally as possible. So we're offering this thing called what we like to call the NFT SP, the NFT subscription plan. It's the way you can just sign up and start collecting. So we've been working on building our artist roster, so networking heavily within the Polygon NFT community to kind of build up a roster of artists who are planning to launch through the Mulletverse to these new crypto users who have never experienced this before, to where they can just get on and start redeeming stuff that they think is cool for their wallet. And we're trying to add this baseline level of utility to all projects, regardless if they come with any utility or not, because we're implementing gamification strategies that essentially allow people to build up a collector score, which entitles them to more of a percentage of the fees associated with the platform. So we're doing these things to try to essentially lower the technical barriers to entry, increase accessibility, and also boost secondary market sales for creators, because we're going to be implementing collector challenges on their collections to pretty much incentivize users to go out and also buy them on secondary markets to build up their score and reach certain verification levels and things like that. So that's the Mulletverse, and we have some other things. The scope is fairly large. It's very ambitious, but right now we're in the early stages. We have our pre-sale live on our website via Square and PayPal to kind of start that accessibility.
Yeah.
And then also on OpenSea, but yeah.
That's awesome. Cool. Yeah, that's
definitely follow us on Twitter.
I definitely will. Yeah, and well, I mean, we'll link to it in the description, like I said. But yeah, that's what I knew there was more to it. I mean, I love the mullets, but I knew that you were doing more than that. And so I was hoping that you would elaborate there. So it was cool to learn kind of the full scope of what you're doing. I'm definitely going to check it out. Like I said, we'll make sure we get a link in the description.
Yeah, feel free to reach out to us too. We're essentially looking for some development help right now. We're trying to find developers, so it seems weird to say when I'm basically talking to developers all day, but I don't want to push the Mulletverse too much at work, so
sure.
Oh yeah, read the white paper too.
Nice. Yeah. How big's the team you're working with?
Right now it's about 12 people.
Okay.
So they're all from the same place, really, Athens, Ohio. It all kind of started with me talking to my friend about crypto and NFTs all the time, and we're always thinking of these things that essentially have product market fit. Like, does this work? Will people want to use this? And he ended up getting a mullet, and it all just went from there.
It all came together.
Spiraled down.
We even brought on one of our old PhD level professors from the university. So he's working with us actually almost full time. I don't know how he does it. He's an accounting PhD, and he's on the team. And then just other friends from our lifetime that we've just talked with about the project, and we weren't even asking them to get involved, but they're just like, we want to be in on this. What can we do? So we got like guys doing marketing and, promotion and art. Like, we have 2 artists Me and Dr. Wilson and Jake, they're the other kind of core leaders of the project. Just working really night and day to kind of get this thing building. But the one thing we're lacking right now is some help in the development side of things. So definitely reach out.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. And then Thomas, what was the project that you said that you really liked, the community? I was just interested.
It's called Surreals. The Surreals, beautiful profile pictures, surreal profile pictures. And they're a very wholesome community. They're just building regardless of what's going on with the crypto market right now.
Love that.
That's worth a check out. That's worth checking out, as is God's Unchained if you want to get into a blockchain game.
Yeah, that's right. I'm very happy you brought that up, because that does sound pretty cool. Mario, is there anything that you have seen, come across that you think is interesting to highlight?
Sure, yeah. So similar to Thomas's community, so I have I'm part of the Impact Theory community, which is it's all centered around growth mindset, and all of their projects are also centered around that. And what they want to do is create a media company that basically makes sure that no one gets to the age of 15 without encountering a growth mindset through media. So that it's anime, it's movies, it's all kind of content like that. And it's an amazing community. It's so wholesome. It's so energizing, I'd say. And they have the NFT. So they have various NFT projects that are based on original IP that they are creating right now. And they also have the Founder's Key, which is basically a key to all of the upcoming projects. It gives you just an insane amount of value.
Awesome.
And also then there's Vivi, which I mentioned, right? Which is backed by his name is Alfred Kahn. He's the guy who's responsible for all licensing deals for Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and the list goes on and on and on. Nintendo, I think, is also under his belt. He's the guy who brought Pokemon to the US, and the anime was basically a advertisement for the game, which was created by them. And I think he also called it Pokemon, as we know it nowadays. It was Pocket Monsters before that.
That's right.
And he's behind this project called Ecomi, which is basically a one-stop shop for digital collectibles, which are based on existing IP, as I mentioned, Disney, Marvel, DC, you name it, they have it. And I like it because it's basically you buy it on an app. It's quite inexpensive compared to other projects. So you can get comics, for example, for $6. You can get collectible like figurines for $40. It depends on the drop. And then I think it's a more like risk-controlled way to get into that and see how prices fluctuate and how rarity affects price. And they are also slowly imbuing them with a utility. So that's very interesting. And that's cool to check out.
Awesome. Well, yeah, Mario, Spencer, Thomas, thank you so much for joining. I'm very happy that we got about an hour in to just talk straight NFTs. Normally we throw in mini games in between all of the segments, and I honestly just wanted the full conversation. I wanted to, say, screw the games. I just want to talk about NFTs for an hour, and that's what we did. And I'm so happy that the three of you could join us. So, thank you so much. I hope everyone watching at home enjoyed it. Hopefully learned a little bit. Hopefully doesn't get scammed on any NFT deals. I'm Caleb Brown. This is KMFCast from X Team, episode 7. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
See you guys. Absolutely. Bye.
Bye.